Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 24 of the Bill Podcast, and today we'll be going through Heroku, a platform for easy deployment or even scaling our web applications. Now, a little bit sorry that I couldn't make it for the episode last week. That's because I was having ton of fun running JS Camp, a conference in Singapore. And this also means that I hope to share a lot of things that I picked up over the course of the conference. The speakers and the attendees really inspired me and kind of reminded me, hey, that I have tons of things to learn. And this also means that I should be recording a lot of the future episodes of Bill Podcast so that I don't miss a week. All right, so let's get started with Heroku. If we go to Heroku.com, the web page itself will show us various links on how and where we can get started. Now, the very first link under Heroku that I want to show you is the Dev Center, because this consists of a lot of documentation that tells us how to build up Heroku for our web application. And Heroku also comes with a lot of add-ons. So if your web app is very simple with very few viewers and users, you can easily get started with the free version. But as you scale up, you can add on a variety of add-ons that are pointed here. Some are paid, some are free, but seriously, it's a great way to deploy and share your web apps. All right, so let's get started. So what we'll do today with Heroku is that we'll be using one of their type of applications that is supported, which is Rails. So as you can see, Heroku supports a lot of other languages, but for the purpose of demo, we'll be doing Rails, and we'll be using the same application that we built last week. All right, so let's get started with that. I am right inside the to-do application that we built last week, and before we do any deployment, let's firstly make sure how to get started with Heroku. So here I am in the document. Of course, the very first thing you should do is probably sign up. So I am already signed up, and when you kind of like log in, so let's do this, I will come to this pretty page full of my own apps. So as you can see, I already have a lot of like test apps that I've been deploying and playing around with it. And each of these apps, so for example, I come to Squarefield, which was a little Sudoku app that I did. You can go under resources, that tells you a lot of information about it, who are the collaborators. Right, I shared it with another of my friend, or even the activity that this app has. So very clean interface, very intuitive, and this is what will give you when you kind of log into it. Right, so after you log in, they will typically also tell you to install Heroku Tool Belt, which is very useful for our development. So what the Heroku Tool Belt consists of is a command line tool for creating and managing Heroku apps. Also, it integrates with Git, a revision control, so that we can push and pull to Heroku very easily. So make sure that you have your tool belt and the Heroku web app installed and logged in. So after we have logged into Heroku as a new user, as well as downloaded Tool Belt, the very first thing we will do is check that Heroku is installed properly by Heroku -- version. And there you go, Heroku Tool Belt. Of course, if you want to update, we can do Heroku update, but I believe I already have the latest version and therefore nothing to update. Right, the next thing we will do is try to log into Heroku. So we will do Heroku login and password, and there you go, we will see that authentication is successful and we can use the command line tool to log in. Also, what we would typically want to do is use SSH keys to kind of add to Heroku our public key, so that every time we do git push and git pull, it will be automatic, right? So in order to find out what are the Heroku keys we already have, we can do Heroku Keys. As you can see, I already have 2 here. And of course, if you want to do Heroku Keys and add, you can even add on. All right, so I've already added, so I'll just exit it. The other useful command to know is definitely the help command, which is Heroku Help. It will give us most use, or if not all, of the commands that Heroku command line comes with. Lastly, what we have is the Heroku list of apps, so Heroku apps. But let's say we want to know in detail about one of the Heroku apps. So what we can do is Heroku apps : info dash dash app, and then the app name, in this case I'll just say Square Fill. And there you have it. It gives us all the info over here, which is very much similar to actually the web interface that we saw just now in Heroku. Alright, so seems like we are ready to get started with our to-do application. So let me first go ahead and prepare it. And we will soon see that we are back into the files and folder structure of the simple to-do application that we did last week. So let's just open it up in our browser in localhost. So for that, we'll just do Rails and server. And there you go. It's a very similar interface, exactly the same app that I'm opening up as of last week. Alright, so let's now go back to our application, and there are going to be two little changes that I'm going to do. The very first one is to our gem file. Now firstly, let me go up and clean up all the comments. Right, that's a lot cleaner right now. So here we can see that SQLite is being used for the database. Now Heroku uses Postgres for its production database. So we're going to create here two groups of gems, one for production and one for development. And inside the development, we will put SQLite. Let's do that right now. And there you go. Instead of SQLite being outside the development group, I have put it inside, and now I'll go ahead and create another group just for production with gem PG for Postgres. And there you have it, two groups, one development and production for two different databases. And then what I'll do is come back to my command line, and this time I'll do bundle install -- without production. Right, great. My bundle is complete now, and next what I'll do is I'll come back to my configuration under production.rb environment. I'll go here configs asset compile, and then I will put it to true so that it will fall back to assets pipeline if the pre-compiled asset is missed, right? So this is a little bit of changes. Okay, so having done that, now the next step we will do is to initiate a Git repo. This is something we have already learned in some of the previous episodes. So for that, I will do git init to initiate a repo, and then I'll do git add so that I am adding all the files in the project, and then I do git commit with a message initial commit for project to do. Right, so there you have it. I have the Git repo, and now if I look at Git status, it is completely clean. So now I will initiate a Heroku repository. So to do that, I'll create a Heroku app. So I'll do Heroku create and then the app name. So let me just do to do build podcast. There you have it. A Git repo is in fact initiated in Heroku. And just for the fun of it, we will do git remote. This basically tells us what are the remote repositories associated with our current local Git repository. And if we want to know more information, we can just add -v to it. And there you have it. We can fetch and push. And this is the Git repo associated with Heroku. Next, all I have to do is git push Heroku master. So basically it's saying that, hey, push my master branch right up to Heroku. Right, and it has been pushed to Heroku. So in order to open it right from our command line, we can just do Heroku open. And it will open it in the browser. And there you have it, it opened, but something is wrong right here. So let's see what we can do about it. So what we can do is, in Heroku also there is this little command called Heroku Logs that enables us to see what is going on. And from the error, as you can see, it looks like there has been a Postgres error. Relation task does not exist, and this only means we need to do rakedb migrate just like we did for Rails, but this time it will be Heroku run rakedb migrate. Right, so after we have migrated the tables, and when we come back to Heroku and we refresh it, and there you have it, we have our very familiar to-do task application that we were having on the local host right up to Heroku, and we can now share this URL with any of our friends. So let's just have a new task, and over here I'll just say get milk, Right, tag is grocery and create task. And yes, it's working, a very simple app, very quick and easy to deploy. Right, and finally, after we have deployed the app, I would also want to go through with you add-ons that are available. So if you can do Heroku add-ons and then :list, there are plenty of add-ons that we can try out for free or some minimum sum. And as we scale on, you probably have to pay a lot more. Right, so there are tons of add-ons, whether it's a database for analysis or emails. So they are all for us to try out. And lastly, there is also Heroku Labs. So for that, we can do Heroku Labs and then :list. These are basically some experimental features that Heroku themselves are going through and experimenting. Right, so that's it for this episode, a very short one. Seriously, Heroku has a lot of things to go through. And finally, if we kind of go to my apps page, you will also see that there you have it, the to-do build podcast app is ready. And if you kind of go inside and peek inside, we will see the details in the activity, resources, settings, and a lot more. And finally, before we go on to the related links, I want to say that deploying an app to something like Heroku might seem very easy, but there are a lot of fundamental things that we need to know. You probably need to know some kind of framework or a language like Rails to get started. I did an episode previously. You also definitely need to know Git, as well as GitHub is also good for us to store the code. So at any one point of time, our web application will be stored once in the GitHub and once for deployment in Heroku typically. And of course, you definitely need to know the command line. So a terminal is something that we have to be very comfortable with it. And also for our Heroku push and pull, we need to know the SSH. Right, and finally, I would want to also talk a little bit about similar services. Amazon Web Service also allows us to host our applications. It is pretty configurable. You can operate many operating systems, and it's highly experimental as well as configurable. Next, there is App Fog, which is also a very similar concept to develop and deploy apps. Next, also there is Nodejitsu, which specializes just on Node.js applications. So there are many deployment platforms that kind of specializes in certain language or frameworks. And lastly, there's Rails Playground, which is just for Rails apps. Right, so that's it for this episode. And finally, for the build link of the week, I decided to go with this thing that I recently discovered, which is called a jargon file, which basically talks a lot about what a hacker is, a hacker culture, their slang and writing style, email. It's pretty funny, actually. I recently found it out when my friend was organizing a Red Wire, a hackathon in Singapore, and he kind of quoted this little funny line at the top, which says, because the only thing scarier than a hardware guy is a software guy with a soldering iron. So it's pretty funny, and I asked him how he got it, and he said, hey, it's through Red Wire. So this also means that I hope to cover hardware stuff in the future of Build Podcast as well. Right, so that's it for this episode of Build Podcast. For all other episodes, check out build-podcast.com. And as usual, we can subscribe to RSS, GitHub, iTunes, YouTube, Vimeo, and many others. I love to get emails from you. Thank you for those of you who have been writing to me. Right, and that's it. So I shall see you next week with another episode of Build Podcast. Goodbye.